Hello and welcome to the next tour with
Ian,
Andia. We're so happy to have you here with us today on episode 36. This is Transition to a Jobby
and
with
we'll explain what that is in
yeah,
a moment. Yeah.
we definitely will. We're here with our guest, Laura Hatcher. Laura spent 31 years as a naval officer, retiring as an '06 in 2018 as a captain in the Navy. So we're super happy to have you here with us today, Laura, who is now a professional photographer. And we're so happy to have you. Laura, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
We're so happy to have you here to talk about your jobbies. So
Yeah.
I'm going to let Ian kick us off with your first question this morning.
Yeah. So, Jobby, I think that's the elephant in the room. Can you tell us a little bit about what is a Jobby? One, and did you plan to do this upon your transition out of the military? Was this your desired end state?
So a jobby, I don't think I coined it, but I say it all the time, so perhaps I did, is when you take your hobby and because you're a veteran and you have to nuke everything, we're all overachievers, as you know. You take your hobby and you make it so amazingly perfect, or you try to make it so amazingly perfect that it turns into a job or a jobby. And that's basically what I did with my photography hobby. And to be honest, the reason why I got into the hobby was because from when I was very small, growing up as an only child, I would get bored very easily. And my parents, also military family, grew up. Their way of joking would be say, "Well, Laura, it's because you're a boring person." Or my dad, who retired as a E9 and then went on to work for the federal government for another many years, he would say something like, "Well, just go play in traffic," because that's what that's what a senior NCO says in the Navy, right? To his kid that's bored. um, I ended up getting, just lots of little, collecting stamps. I was a nerd, reading. Just, you have to basically figure out things on your own. Photography wasn't one of those things, though. This trend of always being bored kind of continued all the way into my late 40s, apparently. The last 2 years of the Navy, because having 3 sons and my spouse and a Harley and a full-time job apparently wasn't enough, I decided to go, take photography lessons at a local place here in, Alexandria, Virginia. And, I went in kind of with just a, "Well, let me see if this is cool," and I left the first night scared out of my mind because there was so much math involved. I don't despite graduating from that college that does a lot of math. But after the first lesson, I was really hooked because I realized very quickly that photography gives you a lot of access and placement, not related to the fact that I was an intelligence officer. And that's what I get a lot is, "Oh, did you do this as an intelligence officer?" I'm like, "No, those are James Bond kind of questions, right? Only James Bond is out there with a camera as an intelligence officer." It was strictly a hobby. And no, I actually thought I was going to continue to grind like everybody else that thinks they're supposed to come out of the military and either go back to those 3-letter agencies or go back to contracting or corporate. I was just as focused on doing that as because that's what transition class tells you, right? They don't talk about entrepreneurship. They don't talk about the fact that you can go off and really do anything you want to. They just kind of focus you more towards the things that are safe.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's excellent. I really love that you harnessed that passion, and had it, flourish later in life and you didn't, color yourself into a box.
Right.
And that's I think the biggest reason why we wanted to have you on this show is to be able to, let everybody know that you don't have to be defined by what you did in the military. You don't have to be defined by just the skills that you think you can carry forward, but there's so much more to you as a person. Especially once you take that uniform off and you've got the freedom of maneuver to do what you want. So excellent, excellent story on how you made that leap and monetized it, professionalized it, but still get to have fun with the passion side of it.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go off script a bit. I told you, I warned you ahead of time that I'd probably do this, but that's the fun part. So we had a friend of ours that on another episode that does woodworking as his jobby, and he was talking about the fact that like he did utilize some of the skills coming out of the military that helped him get his business going, and veteran owned business. I think some tax implications. He had lived over in Maryland. So speaking of the entrepreneurship side, and I'm sure that you ran into a lot of this as you were setting up your business, but are there any tips or tricks that you'd like to share that maybe missteps you did, or any tips that we can share with our audience that's interested in taking that Jobby to the next level?
Yeah. So I messed up so bad that I actually now teach people how not to do what I did.
Brilliant.
I have a class
Nothing
that
like experiential learning, right?
Yeah, that's right.
exactly. Well, again, you draw what you did in the military, right? Everywhere that I was stationed, whether I was in command or just, in charge of something, I would always try to leave it better than I found it. And the Navy was very good at giving me, jobs that needed a lot of work to leave. Either I'm starting an organization or picking up the pieces after a disaster, those kind of things. And so you're used to documenting and SOPs and giving a turnover binder, if you will. And so
Mhm.
I essentially established a turnover binder class for other photographers, how not to get in trouble with your county for forgetting to pay the taxes that you didn't know that you didn't know.
Right.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Good things to
Right.
know.
I mean, the key thing really for anyone that wants to start a business, there's one place that you should always start with, and it's a small business development center. And it's americassbdc.org, I believe is the website. And when you go on that website, there'll be a zip code that you can put in your own zip code and see where the closest one is. And to stress that it's free.
Mhm.
Regardless of whether you're a veteran or civilian, it's absolutely free. I'm sure you're familiar with it. But most people don't know about it. And what's important about going to them first is because we will all Google or YouTube our way into lots of trouble, like I
Yep.
did. And the people who are giving you that advice, they don't live where you live. They don't know what your county, city, state taxes and rules are. And and that's essentially how I kind of got into trouble, is because I wasn't aware of all the different taxes that both my revenue and the fact that I was buying lots and lots of gear, because that's what photographers do. We have gas, gear acquisition syndrome, and we tend to buy a lot of stuff. Well, I didn't know that the more you buy, the more taxes you're paying, not sales tax,
Mm.
personal property tax, business personal property tax, right? And it depreciates every year. But
Right.
pretty much, if you walk into my studio, everything that you see, whether you're sitting on my couch or looking at my curtains or the cameras that I'm using to take your picture, I'm paying tax on that every single year to the
Mm.
city of Alexandria. You're paying to play. That's how they get their revenue, is one way. And the other way is, the more money I make, the more I pay taxes.
Right.
That's always a fun one.
Yeah.
Quarterly taxes.
Right. Right. Oh, yay, I made lots of money. Yay, I have to give away, a quarter of it or
Yeah.
50% of it.
Or more. Yeah.
And I will tell you, the class that I teach, many times people will say, okay, now I know this is not for me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You gave me the hard truth up front. I
Mhm.
didn't stumble into, like I did, I didn't stumble into all of this, there's a lot of overhead beyond the fun part. There's just so much that you have to be cognizant of and aware of, whether or not you can start your business in your home.
Right.
Yeah. And what implications you have then when you go to sell your home. A lot
Yeah.
of people don't realize that either on the other side of it. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot that goes into that. And I appreciate you sharing all that. So I think I know the answer to my next question, which is what would you go back and tell yourself at transition, knowing what you know now, 8 years ago in 2018? What would you tell Laura then to, like, I don't know. I'm guessing it's take your own class, but what, right? But what are some other things you would maybe tell yourself if you were just starting out?
Yeah. Well, I guess we'd have to assume 8 years ago that I would knowingly go into business, right? Because I kind of stumbled into business. I mean, the reason I got into business is because I was running away from the real job that I didn't enjoy anymore. Uh,
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. So, I mean, I just to back up a second, because usually I get asked, well, why are you working for yourself? I actually got a real job, if you will, although I say that, and this is being a small business person, as you probably know, is actually a real job because it's a lot of work. 12 people doing one person, right, job. So, or the other way around, one person doing 12 people's job. But
Yes.
being such, I was head of household. We still had 3 sons in school. That fear of the unknown, because I think part of TAP class back then anyway, they missed telling you the reality of things, right? Most of the time I heard, well, as a '06, you have to make, twice as much to basically get it back down to where you were, right? In terms of uh,
Housing allowance.
housing allowance, right? Your health care, all these things. So have in your mind now that, oh my gosh, I have to go find a job that pays me 200,000 or 250,000 just to get back to, living within our means, essentially, which is crap, absolute crap. Because is that a bad word? Sorry.
You're fine. You're
You're
totally
fine.
fine.
Don't quote me. Eh, Not so
Hey,
true,
everybody.
right? And now I advise a lot of veterans that come, the majority of the folks that I take headshots are transitioning veterans. So my couch becomes almost therapy before they be in front of the camera. And I tell them, I was like, you can have a passion for something, because that $250,000 job is gonna come with somebody else's drama, probably a very long commute out to Tyson's, from where you live in Alexandria, traffic, stress, very long hours.
Right.
Not take if you've retired with a traditional pension, I can't speak for the future generation, but if you've retired with a decent pension, take that amount of money plus all your healthcare, now add it to a job that may not pay you as much, but you're actually enjoying it. When you put those
Mhm.
2 together, you're back within your means for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to sign yourself up for being stressed out for somebody else, which is
Yeah.
kinda what I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and I think that that's really kind of the underlying current of, this whole thing is finding yourself and finding joy in it,
Yes.
So I'd say, there's a J, an O, and a Y in the word jobby. Sounds to me like it's bringing you lots of joy. You see what I did
Wow,
there,
that was
right?
good. Did you just
Yeah,
say
hey,
that? That was good.
I just came up with that. Yeah, right on the fly. Every now and
Well
again.
done.
Yeah, I'm appropriately caffeinated today. So
I'll give him a little star sticker later.
but that's important, it's important to be able to continue to, find what you really want out of post-military life.
Yeah.
For some people it is chasing that paycheck, for me it was not about the grind. I much like you, I wanted to find something where I felt myself and I could give what I wanted to give to whatever institution I landed in, right? And that's really important. So speaking of how you continue building your business, how do you continue to propel it forward? How do you, what kind of skills did you need to learn in growing that business, but still keep it, keep the fun side of the hobby aspect of it alive, to where it didn't become a grind.
Right. I think the first thing you have to acknowledge is that, especially if you're teaching yourself, I'm self-taught, but I really went out of my way to find mentors. I mean,
Mhm.
just like the military, right? You're not gonna make it, up to all those ranks without either having sponsorship or accountability buddies or mentors. I literally walked into the first studio that I owned for 4 years in Old Town was owned by a previous photographer who had been, in the industry forever, way before digital. I had owned several studios across the country, and I just walked in off the street and I said, "Hey, I aspire to be where you are. Would you like to be my mentor?" And she's like, "I'm sorry, who are you?" And I assured her that I was active duty. This is what we do. I'm, normal. I'm just want to learn. And for the following 3 years, I didn't stalk her every day. Her name's Katie Garlock. She knows I tell this story all the time. And I basically had a relationship with her for over 3 years, and she introduced me to a higher level of thinking. She got me
Mhm.
out of that amateur kind of hobby, and started figuring out how to value, how to price myself, and, put my big girl pants on and be a real, a professional photographer. And then within 3.5 years, she says, "I'm moving back to be closer to my grandkids and my kids." And I out loud, I'm like, not thinking I can afford the rent based off of where we are in Old Town. And it was very reasonable. I'm like, "How much is your rent?" And she tells me, and it's so reasonable. And I'm like, wow, I don't know how to do any of this, but I can figure it out. I'll just get the box first and build the rest later.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was 6 months before the pandemic. So it's just as well that my rent
Mm.
was reasonable because I had to actually cover it for another 6 months
Yeah, until you could have clients in and yeah.
when we shut down. Yeah, because that was considered non-essential.
Right. Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, but not really fair, right? Oh
Right,
my
right,
gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's awesome. And I think you hit on another piece too is finding that mentor, finding somebody that's willing to kind of help you along. And then, you can pay that forward as you're doing now, teaching these
right,
classes, and so being able to continue to build that, that's exactly the genesis of why we do what we do here on this platform is to be able to continue to give back and let folks know that they're not alone
right.
in whatever they decide to do. There's somebody else out there that's experiencing what they're experiencing. There's somebody else out there that's got the answers that you're looking for. So connect with real resources, connect with real people who have gone through the hard steps, knowing that, the hobby isn't just rainbows and unicorns. When you turn it into the jobby, there's some work to be had. So I really appreciate you sharing that and kind of teasing that out a little bit.
Yeah, I just took me back when you were talking about the entrepreneurship side. And I remember we were sitting around doing a brainstorming session when I was working and volunteering with the Military Family Advisory Network. And we were talking about entrepreneurship. It was one of their panels that they had. And we were chatting about this. And I remember they were talking about this idea of like pre contemplation, right? Also, it's like hierarchy of needs, thinking about the pre contemplation stage and how so many people need to understand so much before they even can start thinking about having a business because a lot of people will realize very quickly, as you were saying, that it's not for them. It's
Yeah,
actually not a good idea or they're not ready. They need to wait. And I think that that is such an important part of entrepreneurship. It's great to have that passion for something, but it is a lot of work and there's a lot to be done there. There's a lot to be done on the front end before it can even be fun sometimes. And so I think it's brilliant that you're giving back and I'd love for you to take a few minutes maybe to tell us a little bit more about what you actually do in your photography business right now because there may be folks out there. I know I referred one of our friends to you already who's getting ready to retire. Not sure if he reached out, no pressure there, but it was but I'd love for, our audience to get to know because I mean, it's great that we're talking about your transition and what you've done with that and entrepreneurship, but if you want to share a little bit about what you do and how maybe you can even help some of our audience with the services you provide, I'd love for you to share that too.
awesome. So I think the industry of photography is changing probably faster than I'd like to admit with the onslaught of AI headshot,
Mm.
and I'm embracing this change because I think there's an audience for all of that, right? Whether you want to go to a real photographer or you want to plug in 25 of your selfies and get something plastic and aesthetic. But the services that I provide are headshots, military portraits, and events, and some business branding. What I'm passionate about really is making sure that my active duty brothers and sisters are documenting their legacies. So there's a section on my website and even on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I have a whole basically collage of people in uniform in every different uniform. And the reason why I'm passionate about that is because when I retired in 2018, I was putting together, much like most people do, a slideshow, right? That is going to basically show before the ceremony starts. And I had a hard time finding myself in uniform in pictures. And I know why. I joke about it, but it's the truth. You've got three small children, snot and chocolate, white uniform. Those things don't match. Rarely, rarely
That's
wear
right.
my uniform around those kids. And also being an intelligence officer, many times I'm not in uniform leaving the house or coming back from the house. I'm either changing once I get there, depending on what the commute was about or where I was located. And it was just kind of sad to see that, and I'm in a skiff, so nobody has a cell phone doing selfies in a skiff, right? And really, at the end of the day, we our generation thought it was just a job,
Mhm.
right? Nothing to document. And so I wanted to kind of change that for the next generations. That if you only get one image at every rank, You'll thank yourself for it, but really your family and your community. And we got to the point where once I retired, shortly after that, our sons started getting interested in the service and they're asking, where are your pictures? What did you look like? And it's, I don't have any of that. Sorry. And my parents before me, my biological father and my stepfather who raised me, they were both, one was Air Force, one was Navy. And I can count on 2 hands basically the number of pictures they took.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so interesting and such a great point. Yeah, I mean, I think if I wasn't around this guy so much taking a million pictures of him, we probably wouldn't have had a lot of pictures either.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, that's a great point, and I think it's so awesome that you've turned your career and your post-military career into a job that's giving back to your community too, and really raising the profile of everyone.
Sure.
I think that's so awesome. So it's been so great to have you. I feel like this was like the fastest 20 minutes of my life. This one's so quick, but I did want to give you, if there's anything else you'd like to share with our audience, everything that you've said today, we'll go ahead and put in the show notes so
Yeah.
people can find links. They can find you, the Small Business Development Center, I
Mhm.
think is what you said. We'll make sure we share that link. But yeah, if there's any parting things you'd like to say.
So, because this is a podcast about transition, very quickly, I have 5 transition takeaways I want to share.
Yeah. Bring it on.
First one, self-reflection was not issued in my sea bag or your rucksack, right? Need to learn yourself and figure out introduce yourself back to yourself once you get out because you are completely
Mhm.
different, right? And you may not know what your hobbies are. You may not know
Yeah.
what your passions are. And you have to give yourself some grace and time to figure that out. The second one is get out of your own way. Still talking to myself about that one. Get out of your own head, right?
It can be hard.
There's so many things that the military told us we had to do it a certain way, or we can't do it a certain way, and those things don't apply once you leave. You need to help yourself figure out how to think outside of the box because we were kind of sequestered inside a box for so long.
Literally.
Exactly. And then the third one is leverage your resources. I mentioned Small Business Development Center, but there are so many free resources for veterans specifically. University of Syracuse is the main one that I will mention. The IVMF program, which
Yeah.
has so many tools, as you know. I would definitely put that in the show notes if you could.
We certainly will.
The fourth one is never stop learning. And to this day, in fact, just last week, I'm paying for a mentor, a photographer to just bring me to another level, right? Because I've plateaued. I feel like I've plateaued. And, he's making me feel like I just started yesterday. And then the last one, which we mentioned earlier, was number 5 is to seek mentors and accountability buddies because you can't make it on your own. This quote that I have that I like, and I think it's Benjamin Franklin, but some people die at 25 and aren't buried until 75, which
That's
is,
deep.
it is deep, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But it says so much.
Right? Right. Yeah. So, I mean, you need time for perspective. And I just feel like when I left, back to that question you asked me, what would I have done maybe differently is just slow down. Don't be in
Mm.
such a rush to get to the next job just because you think you have to have it, right? Or you need to do something. Have a conversation with yourself and figure out who you are. You'd be better for it. And I think your family would be better for it too, because you'll be happier and they're happy.
Yeah. Exactly. You
Yeah.
find the joy.
It's hard when it's the first time that you really have opened, the aperture on
Yeah.
whatever. I
Well done.
know.
We're on it
We're on
today.
fire today. But I think that's such a good point because there's so much out there, and if you take that time to really think about it, it's so important and so vital to the transition space. So thank you. Those were
Yes.
awesome.
Thank you.
I absolutely love those. So okay, well now along those lines, so let's go ahead to what's in your rucksack. So this is the game we play with all of our guests, and the idea is what would you like, or what did you take, metaphorically or literally, whatever the case may be, from your military life into civilian life with you? And what did you chuck out, or what were you happy to leave behind?
So for me, being on time. My husband and I, we raised our boys to understand that early is on time and on time is late. I learned that from my parents. I learned it from the Navy, and I just cannot, I start to break out in hives if I'm late, and it's serving me well as a small business owner because, I do factor in usually an hour to 2 hours of prep time before I actually do, even if I've done it every single day the same way. And it just leaves room for less hives.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to take care of yourself.
And timeliness in the military is important. So that's definitely one of the things I took with me. What did I leave behind? I'm still trying, but walking on grass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was abused as a very young midshipman. We weren't allowed to walk on grass at the Naval Academy. People would, I felt like my upper class were hiding behind the bushes waiting for us. And all the way through my entire career, even as a senior
Yeah.
officer, I never walked on grass. Most of my troops would not walk with me. They're like, she doesn't cut through grass. She takes stairs,
You need to come and talk to our delivery guys. It's grass all day.
Honestly.
I would walk an extra mile to avoid going on grass. Yes, I need
That's
to.
Yeah.
so
I
funny.
want to leave it behind, but I'm still struggling.
Yeah, that brings me back. When we first started dating, we were in college. And of course, he was in his uniform, 2 days a week?
At least, yeah.
2 days a week, yeah, in uniform. And I would be like walking with him on campus and we'd be talking, and all of a sudden he would not be next to me anymore
Because of the grass.
because he would not walk on the grass. And I was always like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Very foreign to me. So I was
Yes.
like, I would have to like go find him back on the, because I'd be just talking, and then I'd realize he just wasn't there anymore.
It's real. It's a real thing.
Oh, it is. Yes.
So
Yes.
funny. I
It
love
causes
that.
all the stress.
I haven't thought about that in years. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. I love that. And that resonates with both of those resonate with me so much, obviously. All right. So now we're going to transition into our next bit, two truths and a lie military style. So you're going to get the opportunity to guess our previous guest's lie out of the three facts that I'm going to give you. So Bo Higgins, retired U.S. Marine. Here are his three facts. He's met two presidents. He has never eaten a banana. And he has been to all 50 states. Which one is the lie?
He's never eaten a banana.
That's actually true.
He has never eaten a
He has
banana.
never eaten a banana. He has not met two presidents.
Oh, okay.
So he's been
Yeah.
to all 50 states and never eaten a banana. Isn't that crazy?
I know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
How could you never eat a banana?
Yeah. Apparently, like as a kid, he would spit out like all the mashed bananas or whatever. And just consciously, he never picked up a banana and never ate one ever in his life.
So weird.
Yeah.
That is weird.
I guessed the same thing. I was like, oh, there's no way you've eaten bananas. That's got to be a lie. Nope.
We should have
Apparently not.
known better.
Okay. So, Laura, over to you. What are your three facts that we can present to our next guest and let our audience kind of like linger and wait and figure out
Mull
which
over.
one is the lie? Over to you.
All righty. So I've jumped out of airplanes and helicopters shortly after I joined the Navy. The 41st president, George H.W. Bush, kissed me on the cheek in front of lots of sailors. And all three of my sons are following our footsteps in the military.
Those are all like,
Plausible.
super plausible. But we're going to let our next guest have the opportunity to reveal what the answer is on the next episode of the next tour. So, Laura, thank you so very much for being here. This has been really fun. We've learned so much about what it is to have joy in a jobby and what a jobby actually is, and really appreciate, what you've brought to the table and the experiences that you've shared with our guests. So hit us up on thenexttourpodcast.com. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can listen to us. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and so forth and so on. Everywhere.
Wherever you
We're there.
find podcasts.
And of course, we'll link you to Laura.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
The views, opinions, and advice expressed by our guest on the next tour are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast, Andia, or any affiliated organizations. While we strive to provide helpful and accurate information, this podcast is for informational purposes only. We encourage listeners to consult with professionals or conduct their own research before making any significant decisions related to military transition or post-service life. The content is intended as guidance and personal perspective, not as official advice.